Pete, we talked JJ Edwards, the bombshell. We talked about that one. Did we get a chance to talk about Ashari Charles? I don't think we did.
So not after when I texted you. I don't know if you.
Yeah. Why don't you talk? You've been talking to people about Ashari Charles on the staff. So what are we hearing about Ashari Charles?
Yeah, I mean, I remember I said months ago that there's people who are very high on him in the sense that, like, and you say this a lot about guys, and he's a 4-star, but I think they probably believe he's a better player than his national. What's his national ranking? Let me be exact here.
Yeah, I think it's like in the top. I mean, I think he's maybe 150 on the 247.
I mean, look, that's pretty high. He's a
4-star. He's not a top 100 player.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's 206 on the composite. But I think that they believe that this is someone who is a bit raw. So just kind of the gist of what I got was that this is a guy who's extremely talented, plays very hard, which we watch these pass rushers all the time, D, and half the time, not half the time, but you're watching the highlights. It's great, but we're only seeing the best of them. And that motor needs to run the whole game for these guys, even though they will be a lot of them situational players, but he's a guy who they believe plays very, very hard, right? So athletically, extremely gifted. I think the run game is where he lacks a little bit right now. Has a ton of pass rush moves. This is people inside the building. This is kind of their notes on him. Ton of pass rush moves. Has the frame to play across the line of scrimmage is what this person told me, which I think is interesting because we are just kind of looking at him as a stand-up edge guy, right? So that's an interesting note to me. Says, once he gets consistently violent with his hands, which is another part of what we talk about a lot, once the consistency with his hands comes, it's going to be a wrap. It's going to be a wrap because that's, this sort of physical ability that this guy has as a pass rusher. But again, tools, gotta be consistent with his power in the hands and against the run. As a lot of these young guys who are just asked to really get after the quarterback.
And motor, right? Which you said, that's a big one. Playing hard, that's hard to coach. And when the guy has that with the tools and the power and all that kind of stuff, the natural power, the weight room power, the stuff he has, that's all good stuff. Hands, that's what Jason Taylor's for. So no, very good feedback. By the way, shout out to Cane for Life out there in the Pacific, serving the country. Appreciate you, appreciate all you do, and all the men and women in the armed services. Appreciate everybody who is out there defending our country. Pretty good week for the armed services, man. Flying from Missouri to Middle East, blowing stuff up and rolling back and having dinner with the wives. That's pretty sweet. Shout out to all you guys, man. That's why we do this show. That's why we can just sit here and talk about recruiting. It's so again, shout out to everyone in the armed service. I know it's a huge part of this audience and Canes Nation. Al Lewis asking about Daniel Norman from St. Thomas coming to Oklahoma. Was it a Charles or Norman thing? I think, Miami's after some big dudes at defensive end. And I think my daughter's trying to pull me to go to camp. We'll get there soon, baby. You got to get me. We got almost 1,400 live on the CanesInSight Daily podcast. Yeah, we got almost 1,400. We got 1,400. We got to finish. Talking Daniel Norman here. So Daniel Norman with him, St. Thomas, high upside guy, kind of a developmental guy. So I think with him, Miami is after such big, the Anthony Jones of the world. Mentioned Ashari Charles, Nolan Wilson was here. You're still after guys like our boy from Waldley, Jaquez Wilkes. So I know I'm leaving guys out. So you're in the mix for a lot of good defensive ends that are fully developed and highly rated. So I think a developmental guy like Norman, he's thinking, I'll go to Oklahoma, get developed. They had R. Mason Thomas, which is kind of a similar guy from a private school in Broward that rose up. Nick Bonito, who we talked about a ton, the guy that developed at Oklahoma, now is one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. So I think when you look at all of that, you're talking about, a good situation for him to develop in his eyes. And Oklahoma's being smart to get in there early. And Miami just, they're monitoring him. They like the upside there with Daniel Norman. I like the upside there with him. But, they're working a lot of different angles here at the defensive end position with a lot of really, really talented guys in the mix. Let's see what we got. Go ahead.
John Z asking about the other edge guys. We had an update on Nolan Wilson. Was that yesterday? I'm losing sense of time with the time difference. But you had a big update on Nolan Wilson a couple days ago.
Just that we made a big move with the visit. I think it's us in Alabama. He had a quote to Rivals at this 5-star challenge where he's at. Or by the way, I think he weighed like 257 at that camp. He's a big dude. And he was saying that.
That's what I said, but that's what I said when we did it the other day. I was like, man, the one thing that sticks out is he's not a developmental pass rusher in the terms of he's skinny and has to put on weight. Like, this guy's there from a size perspective already.
No question about it, man. He's got more to gain, I think, too. So he's a very talented guy. Again, Miami and Alabama. He said that Miami. He said it was still Alabama in the lead in Rivals, but that Miami was really, really coming strong. So, we'll see how that one plays out. He's another guy who talked about those spring visits. Nolan Wilson was a spring visit. Didn't get a lot of attention, but we reported on CanesInSight that he was there. So, that's one thing.